Hello, fellow Ghanaians and the entire world. Welcome to my program, Mining for the Truth, which refers to the process of beginning to discover the undiluted doctrines of Christ. I attend Church of Christ. I'm from Ghana, West Africa. The page or channel has two purposes and follows. One, to teach the word. John 1 verse 1. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. We can prove this by going to Genesis 1 verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The plural word for God there is Elohim, God the Father, God the Son, Jesus Christ, the Word, God the Holy Spirit. Elohim suggests God of creation. 2, to teach the truth. As you can find on the screen, John 8 verse 32. And you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. What is the truth? John 17:17. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. What is the truth manifestation? John 14 verse 6. And Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me or except through me. The phrase except by me or except through me means that there is no other way. That's why if you go to Acts 4 verse 12, the Bible is saying that there is no other name given among us from heaven to the earth, under which we are being saved, except Jesus Christ. There is only one God. Doris Odonko, you are welcome to the program. I love you so much, and I know you also love me. I've missed you a lot. I welcome you, Max, Campus Church, Eccl, Takoradi. All members are welcome. What do I have for you today? We are continuing our studies in the book of Ecclesiastes. So theme is the book of Ecclesiastes. The topic is searching for the true meaning of life. What is the true meaning of life? Today we have a subtopic, the pedagogy of chapter 5, episode 1. 2 objectives. 1, or A, God amid the shadows. So Ecclesiastes 5 verse 1 to 7. And then the B will be words, promises, promises. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 1 to 2. Actually, today we are going to deal with Ecclesiastes 5 verse 1 to 2, even though I said that God amid the shadows from Ecclesiastes 5 verse 1 to 7. But we're not going to treat from 1 to 7. No. Today will be chapter 5 verse 1 and 2. Then next time, guys, we will continue with chapter 5 verse 3 to 8. So that's why I'm saying we have episode 1 and then episode 2. Thank you so much for viewing my videos. In fact, I am impressed. And once again, I've paid for a booster, you mean YouTuber, to boost my channel. So I think I may have hit 1K. I mean 1,000 viewers and above, because I paid for it. Henceforth, please try to subscribe for me, please. Alright. I only want the gospel of Christ to be heard. That's all. No one is paying me. My number is 0248-026557. You can call or chat if you want to donate, fine. Alright. Now, by introduction, God amid shadows. What comes into your mind when you hear something of this nature? Now, in summary, means that God exists while people are suffering. And those who are suffering assume that God does not care. Some will even say that God does not exist. If he exists, why is it that he has not been attending to my aid? Why has he not responded to my prayers? But is this the case? No. If you go to Ecclesiastes 3 verse 16, though I'm trying to recap previously, it is saying that where justice should have been found, there was wickedness. Where justice should have been found, there was wickedness. So why would someone debate that God is not there? God is there, but he's amid the shadows. He is in there observing everything. If you go to the same Ecclesiastes 4 verse 1 to 3, it is saying that the poor and the defenseless of being protected, were made the prey of the powerful. So you can imagine. Now in the Bible, we are taught that God even cares for the widows. So basically, he also cares for the oppressed, depressed, and compressed. But if you go to Ecclesiastes 4, verse 1 to 3, it is not saying so. Their cries for relief were unheard. They have become prey to the powerful people. People who are wealthy, actually. People with power, with influence, societal recognition, people with status. The poor and then the needy have fallen prey to them. And the Bible is saying that their cries for relief were unheard. They have cried and cried and cried. Some have prayed, some have fasted for justice, for God to intervene. Yet, their prayers are unheard. It is not so that it is unheard. You are assuming. Now, Solomon observed that by saying that they had never been born. He meant that it would have been better if they had never been born. Because you are here suffering, praying to God, and God isn't responding. But let's see what we have in Deuteronomy 29, verse 29. It is saying that the secret things belong to the Lord our God. That's all. Some of these things are secret. I cannot penetrate into God's wisdom. Nobody can penetrate into the wisdom of God. So the secret things belongs to the Lord our God. So for this, we are dumb because he created the human beings. He knows why they are in need. He knows why they are being oppressed, depressed, and compressed. He knows why they are falling prey to the powerful people. Who am I, in my physical strength, to contend or to defend them? Now, let's listen to a poem from James Russell Lowell, and then we start to read chapter 5, verse 1 to 2. Though the cause of evil prospers, truth forever on the scaffold. Though the cause of evil prospers, yet this truth alone is strong. Truth forever on the scaffold. Wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future, and behind the dim unknown stand God amid the shadows, keeping watch above his own. I hope you know about a scaffold. A scaffold is four-legged structure used to climb a height. In terms of engineering, it can even be used at the civil and then the construction industry. So inside has a platform where you can sit to or stand to do your work. But you see that the scaffold is always risky and it is not comforting. If the locks are not locked well, you can fall down and die. We hear people, engineers, who had fell to die because of the wind. When there's a heavy wind, it can pull the lockers and you can easily die. In fact, it is very risky. That's why the first thing to do when you climb a height is to secure your harness. And a harness is a safety belt which prevents the engineer from falling into hanging. The scaffold can fail irrespective of how secured it is. So the first is that have a secured harness. Don't just wear the harness. Secure it. We mean hook the belt so that when the scaffold fails, then you become more or less swinging to and fro. The rescue team can easily rescue you. All right, but the throne is where you sit comfortably and then you are being fed. So we think that the needy are rather on the dangerous, insecure scaffold, and the wicked is rather sitting comfortably, preying on the needy. So you see that the poem is in line with Ecclesiastes 5, verse 1 to 2. Once again, We don't take the Bible as graphic, okay? Don't just wake up that you also want to teach the Bible. You need preparation. Always remember the 5 P's. Proper preparations prevent poor performance. So you must prepare. All right. Now you can go to Ecclesiastes 5, verse 1 to 2. But before then, she's saying that it is on the throne of evil that ultimately succeeds. It is a cross, the place of apparent despair and defeat, the place of poverty and emptiness and nothingness. So don't think that Satan will prevail or evil will triumph. No. Their happiness and enjoyment, their pleasures are temporary, precisely on the earth. When they die, they go and suffer. Those who are suffering, being oppressed, depressed, and then compressed by the powerful people who are unrighteous, basically. You are suffering here, but when you die, God will grant you paradise. That's when you stay or remain faithful in His church. So you see that the wicked is enjoying whilst the needy is suffering. The wicked goes to suffer after death. The needy enjoys after death. That's all. I think this is a basic explanation. Now let's read Ecclesiastes 5, verse 1 and 2, and then we move on. Because I was trying to warm up anyway. Ecclesiastes 5, verse 1 to 2. At times, my network is slow, so please pardon me. That's why sometimes it will have to load. Walk prudently when you go to the house of God, and draw near to hear, rather than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they do evil. Do not be rash with your mouth, and let not your heart utter anything hastily before God, for God is in heaven and you on earth. Therefore let your words be few. The verse 1. Walk prudently when you go to the house of God, and draw near to hear, rather than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they do evil. So what is the meaning of Ecclesiastes 5 verse 1 to 2? It teaches us to approach God with reverence and humility. Less talking, but listening. Less talking, but listening. And to think cautiously before promising God. That's all. To think cautiously. Be cautious of your thinking before promising God. So the title is Words, Promises. That's the essence of Ecclesiastes 5, verse 1 to 2. Okay, so we move on. So we are on the second objective. Now here, the language of reflection in Ecclesiastes 4 verse 1 to 16 changes to the language of instruction. So here, it's not about reflection, but rather instruction. Instruction is a laid down rule to be followed. The 5th chapter opens with a sobering warning about our approach to God. It is couched in language meaningful for the times when the house of God referred to the temple, the place toward which the prayers of Israel were to be directed. We mean Jerusalem, to open the window to Jerusalem and pray. 1 Kings 8 verse 29, 30, and even verse 40. Jonah 2 verse 4. Daniel 6 verse 10. You're going to read Daniel 6 verse 10 and then I will explain, of course. The explanation is based on pray towards the windows in Jerusalem. Daniel 6 verse 10. Or pray through the windows in Jerusalem. So Daniel 6 verse 10. We're going to see that he prayed, I think, 3 times a day. How often do you pray? How often do you remember your God? Daniel had traveled. He was a stranger elsewhere, but he was to prove himself as a Jew. Now, when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went home, and in his upper room, which is windows open toward Jerusalem, window open through or toward windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom since early days. So I may ask you, why is it that when every Jew traveled, he had to open his window toward Jerusalem and pray to God? The answer is simple. It was a common practice among the Jews. A common practice to affirm their faith and identity in the foreign land, because they were strangers. Daniel was in Babylon. He was no more in his hometown. And that is why you have to stand for God. Live for God. Most of us, when we travel, we forget about who God is. We live our own life after prosperity from the world through evil means. We return and pretend as if when we went there, we were punctual and regular to church. Daniel was to live for God. Matthew 5, verse 13. We are to live as a salt to disinfect the world. The same 5, verse 14. We are to shine amidst the darkness. How often do you portray your Christianity when you leave your region, your state, your country to elsewhere? So, we say that this was a common practice among the Jews to affirm their faith in God when they were in foreign land. Now, this helped them maintain their promises to God. That's all, because maybe I've made a vow. No, I wouldn't say maybe. I have vowed to God that I will not sin before Him, whether I am in Takoradi or whether I am away. Now, when I travel and there's no church to attend, that doesn't mean that I will sin. Sometimes I call back to my church and then I listen to the teachings. If they are online, I stream it live. That's all. Or I can find any church on Facebook who is doing live worship, and then I will watch. Of course, I will be missing the Lord's Supper and then the giving, but at least my mind might be directed that on Sunday, at least my fellow brethren are worshiping God. The core problem of our failure to deal with God, as we ought to be too small a grasp or even an inaccurate view of who He is. He is surely merciful and then gracious. Exodus 33, verse 6. But He is also above and beyond all that we might imagine in wisdom, power, and righteousness. Isaiah 40, verse 25 and 26. Psalms 119, verse 142. There is thus utmost danger in toying with such a God. Deuteronomy 4, verse 24. Luke 12, verse 5. Hebrews 10, verse 31. The same Hebrews 12, verse 28 to 29. You don't toy with God. You do not toy with God. He is not a cartoon to manipulate. He is one, not you, who rules. He rules over you, and not you to rule over God. Because you can mock him when you are alive. I wonder, God is so patient. But it is not always that he allows people to mock him and go scot-free. Some have mocked him and they had transcendent consequences. Instant justice, even in our own world. You can read history and you know it. His knowledge is limitless. Yours tiny in comparison. His knowledge. In fact, James 1 verse 5 is telling us that God rather gives us wisdom. No human being can advise God. And no human being can advise God. He has no counselor. Compared to a king in Ghana, where the king must have a counselor. God has no counselor. We should thus approach him in awestruck wonder that the eternally righteous God would allow the like of us to draw near to him. Isaiah 6 verse 5. Let's read something in Luke 5 verse 8. Luke 5 verse 8. Luke 5 verse 8. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." When Simon Peter, on his approach to Christ, he fell down at Jesus' knees and see his confession. Depart from me, that Christ should vanish, because he was unqualified to be near him. And we should also move into his presence with silence. A silence born of a submissive willingness to listen rather than to talk. I wonder at times, there's a man in my church who gave a sermon about the indiscipline that goes on during worship. On Wednesday prayers, people are fidgeting with their mobile phones. What we are praying is when some will even go out to unite. Meanwhile, in prayer, we are united. Why should you break the bond? Whilst we are praying, people are also playing. We are seriously fighting battles through prayers. Some were there or will be there either. That's why here we're saying that. And we should move into his presence with silence. Be disciplined. Be disciplined. Turn off your phone. What at all do you gain from your phone? When you die, they won't even bury you with your phone. Of course, I bought my phone. So I decided what to do and then what not to do. I remember I have a mentee, a Joseph Opon. Initially, I was staying down. So he came there, he saw that I had TV, Wi-Fi. In fact, he was asking me that, "Sir, are you able to sleep?" And I said, "Upon why?" He said, "Because you have TV, you can watch news, you can go to YouTube, you have Wi-Fi, you have laptop." And I said, "Yes, because I am disciplined. Even if I'm sleeping 1 hour in the afternoon, I put my phone on complete silence or I turn it off and I will off everything." Then he said, okay. If for him, he will not be able to sleep because he has everything. He loves to browse a lot. Then I said, okay. And we should also move into his presence with silence. A silence born of a submissive willingness to listen rather than to talk. How dare you? When you are going to the shrine, the herbalist, how dare you to even wear your shoe into that room? But of course, God is not preventing us to wear our shoes to it. But we are saying that be submissive. Be submissive. Submissive willingness to listen than to talk. This is the silence that we are making reference to. We must draw near to hear, the one whose knowledge and wisdom are infinite. We are hardly in a position to instruct him. Job 21 verse 22, Isaiah 40 verse 12 to 15, Romans 11 verse 33 and 34. We cannot advise God, as I mentioned already. And the Hebrew verb translated here means to hear as to do. To hear so as to do. To hear means to hear so as to do. It is a Hebrew verb. When you are hearing so as to act. The sovereign counseling of Habakkuk is appropriate. Let's go to 2 verse 20. Habakkuk 2 verse 20. Of course, Old Testament. Of course, I live here with animals, domestic animals and even birds. So please, at times, bear with me. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all earth keep silence before him. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all living things, precisely human beings, keep silence before him. What is your behavior when you go to the presence of the Lord? In pride and arrogance or what? Or you are silent because you are disciplined. I am sure that when you are in your own home watching a movie, sometimes you are so attentive that sometimes you even cry. You are watching a movie which has been acted and then you are crying. Some will not even go there. Some will not even go to urinate, especially when it is being showed by TV, unless the person is watching his own movie where he or she can pause it. And some may not even want to blink their eye. They don't even want to go and drink water. They are so stationary, as if they are objects. You are supposed to observe the same discipline when you go into the house of the Lord. But when we go there, we are preoccupied. We are preoccupied. Now, for me, as I've been saying that, if I go to heaven, then it is by God's consideration. And not that I qualify. And so I assume for everybody. Because, in fact, when you go to church and you see the behavior of your fellow brothers and sisters, it is an eyesore. And it is completely disrespect. It shows how arrogant we are. That human being is never ready to be taught. Especially when dealing with God, it is imperative to think carefully. We mean it is authoritative to think carefully. Think carefully before you speak. Now, the word think as an acronym defined. It means that thinking hard inspires new knowledge. I mean, THINK. Thinking hard inspires new knowledge. So we see that it is imperative when dealing with the Lord, or especially when dealing with God, it is imperative to think carefully before you speak. Now, I'll tell you some true stories. Jephthah. And I think maybe later we will look at Samuel. No, I say Samuel. Yeah, King Saul. And then the 3 sons of Aaron. But before then, we must think carefully before you speak, especially when you are in the presence of the Lord. But before then, I will explain vow and promise, because we're going to learn about Jephthah. Vow and promise. Now, a promise is a declaration to do something. So declaration to do something. That's the promise. Of course, it is a noun. It is a noun. And vow is also a noun, which means a solemn promise. A solemn, a formal or serious. So when we say solemn, so a promise is a noun, which means a declaration to do something. A vow is also a noun, means a solemn promise. Now, vow supersedes promise. So during the wedding day, the couple's vow are not that they promise. Please, when you vow, you should be careful. Some people have vowed and they have died because they couldn't keep it to the lesser gods. They went to the shrine to vow, I will kill a sheep every year. I will offer a cow every year. This is a vow, not a promise. And when you fail to do it, the God there will kill you because it is a vow. Sometimes the vow goes with blood sacrifice. Maybe they will kill a chicken to affirm it. Now, Chpt made a priestly, so precipitancy, choice, and vow. Precipitancy or precipitancy. Chpt made a precipitancy, vow, and choice. Judges 11, verse 30 and 31 was the choice. No, was the choice. No, was the vow. And then 34 to 40 was the choice. Now, I'll tell the story. Judges 11, verse 30 and 31. Chpt was going to a war with the Ammonites. So, verse 30 and 31, he vowed to God that if he delivers the Ammonites to his hands, means that if he wins or if he won over them, then he was going to offer whatever comes first from his home as a burnt offering to God. So he has vowed in Judges 11, verse 30 to 31. Now, God responded and then he thrived over the Ammonites. So, reading from 34 to 40, as he was going home, his daughter, I think only daughter, a virgin, he was playing a timbrel and singing praises. In the olden days, or during the Mosaic era or dispensation, instrumental music was nothing. Of course, it was introduced in the Bible by prophetess Miriam. You are hereby informed that God did not give the Israelites a law that they should use instrumental music to worship him. You won't find this anywhere in the Bible. So this was a victory song. Why? Because the Lord has delivered the Ammonites to the father's hand, means that the father had defeated the Ammonites. So she was celebrating. And the same father vowed to God that whatever comes first from his home, or whatever came first from his home, would be offered as a burnt offering. Because he had vowed, he couldn't change his promise. Now, the Bible is saying that when the daughter got to know it, she said that let the will of the Lord be done. So she went for 2 months to grieve over her virginity. Of course, she was a virgin. And then later she returned to be offered to God. That's the Judges 11 verse 40. Now, precipitance is a noun, which means rashness, undue hastiness, and sadness in action. Sadness of action. Precipitancy is a noun, which means rashness, to rush, undue hastiness, and the suddenness of action. You are hereby informed that nowhere in the Bible has God authorized anybody to kill a human being and offer this human being to him as a burnt offering. Jephthah made a hasty decision. That's all. Don't allow any commentary or anybody, any antichrist, to confuse you. Now you can talk of Isaac and then his father Abraham. God gave him only a son. And the Bible is saying that God was testing the faith of Abraham, that he was to burn Isaac, to kill and burn him as a sacrifice to God. Now you can see that the word test means to examine, and to examine means to audit. Now, auditing is a noun, which means the methodical examination and review. Methodical examination and review is the meaning of the word audit or auditing. Now, audit and auditing are all nouns. They're all nouns anyway. You see, sometimes people assume that I'm not fluent in the English. Oh, no problem. For every language, there are mistakes, you understand? The person who claimed to be even a grammarian, who has become a professor in English, sometimes may mispronounce words, may misquote. At times you are stuck because you are thinking of the right word or the right phrase, and there's nothing wrong with that. So God did not even allow Abraham to kill his son. He was trying to examine, to review. When you are to work with God, He will audit you. Yes, to see if you qualify, you truly qualify to carry the task. So the test there is not about anything, but rather to examine, to review Abraham. And of course, at the end, he provided an animal to be killed to replace Isaac. So for me, I haven't known much about the Bible, but I've never seen anywhere that God officially allowed his prophet or someone that he was working with to kill a human being as burnt sacrifice or offering for him. God killed in the Bible, but that one was for disobedience. And even as at that time, Jesus Christ has not come to die. He has not come to die. So when they misbehaved, he killed them. But nowadays, we are all under the grace. And that law is no more. We continue. David comprehended this in his penitential psalm. He says that mere sacrifices cannot substitute for a broken spirit and a contrite heart. We are going to the different option of the disobedience of the sons of Aaron and then King Saul. Isaiah says that sacrifices from ungodly people are repugnant to God. It is abhorrent to God, of course. Isaiah 1 verse 15. So also Amos 5 verse 21 to 24. Micah 6 verse 6 to 8. And Hosea 6 verse 6. So it is the fool who imagines he can robotically follow the outward forms of divinely prescribed worship and treat it with contempt. God's moral and spiritual word. Yes. If not for foolishness, how can you play God? That I'm trying to be factor and before God. If you can trying to manipulate God. No. Except you're a fool. Except. And a fool is someone who isn't wise. I mean, a wise person who has shifted from reasoning into misbehaving is a fool. But he is no less a fool who imagines that as long as his intention is worshipful, the form of God has prescribed for that worship need not concern him. Aaron's two elder sons and Saul the king would wrongly disagree. So, Leviticus 10, verse 1 to 3. Same thing is seen in Numbers 3, verse 4, and 1 Chronicles 24, verse 2. They are all telling us that the sons of Aaron used strange fire, unauthorized fire. Mostly, you quote Leviticus 10, verse 1 to 3. But today I have added Numbers 3, verse 4, 1 Chronicles 24, verse 2. They are all saying the same. So they are parallel verses and then chapters. When they use wrong, unprescribed fire, or we say strange fire, God killed them. And authorized worship, God did not tell them to do so. They were worshiping from their own mind, or from their own mind. So they thought that they could play with God. So he killed them. Now 1 Samuel 15, verse 16 to 23. Let's look at the story of King Saul and then the Amalekites. God told Samuel to tell King Saul that destroy. We call this Operation Leviathan. Operation Leviathan is a war or a fight which must kill both the human beings and even the crops and vegetables planted around the enemy's area. You must kill even the animals. Operation Leviathan. So, in case of a coup, and they captured the president, he will be killed, his wife, his children, all his relatives, if they are around, or sometimes they will have to travel to chase them, to kill them. They will burn all what this president has planted. It could plantain, mango, banana, everything. Why? Because when you come to Africa, because of juju, a human being can turn into a bird when you want to capture him or her. Someone can turn into a banana or pawpaw. So therefore, they cut and then they burn everything. We call this Operation Leviathan. No Leviathan must be seen. So also God instructed Samuel to tell Saul that, so when you go, kill the king and everything. The king then was King Agag. But Saul reserved Agag, and his soldiers also preserved the best of the animals with the hope that he was going to offer to God. Let's read 1 Samuel 15, I think verse 23, and I see something there. Let's even go to the 22. So Samuel said, has the Lord as great delights in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. So Samuel is rebuking Saul here. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity as adultery. So this is the consequences of the disobedience of King Saul. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. To obey is better than sacrifice. He was to kill everything. Kill and burn, that's all. Kill and burn everything, that's all. In the Bible, we read that King Saul served himself. We are aware. You see that he told Samuel to plead on his behalf. Meanwhile, Samuel had committed no sin. Saul was so proud to confront God. No, I won't say confront. To approach God. He wanted to use Samuel as a delegate. And so therefore, Samuel didn't waste his time to pardon for him. Now let's end on John 6, verse 38. John 6, verse 38. John 6, 38. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. So Christ and then his Father, even Christ himself, being part of the Godhead, being the Son, he came here to do the Father's will. Now, in the Bible, Christ is God, the Son, of course, but he takes instructions from the Father. The Father is the supreme. So from the Father, Christ, and then the Spirit. The Spirit is the least among them. Actually, we cannot be worshiping God when our own will takes precedence over his. No. We are to obey God than to do our own. So precipitancy is a noun, which means rashness, undue hastiness, and sadness of action. Be careful before you vow to God, because when you vow, God is also waiting for you to fulfill it. On that note, next time we'll continue with when you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it. 2, when words becomes toxic. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 8 to 20, and then the first one is Ecclesiastes 5 verse 3 to 8. On that note, my name is Joseph. I will see you next time. Bye bye.